found out with our co-hosting that we can't actually see each other's comments. FYI to everybody in my chat and everyone in Arya's chat.
Actually, I can see Daddy's comments. Can you?
Are you seeing who are you seeing?
Someone named Daddy. Hi there.
No,
So
I'm seeing like Big Gang, James Johnson, thank you.
okay.
Sahil,
Yeah, okay. So we're definitely
Frankie.
not seeing each other's comments.
No, yeah. So just because of that, what we'll do is in terms of comments and if you have questions or anything like that, we'll have a segment in like segment 3 where we'll each take each other's, we'll get comments from you guys and we'll read them out loud so that if we can't see each other's comments and then you can give each of our, like, give Arya a follow if you haven't already. And if you're on Arya's side, give me a follow if you haven't already. And then I
Yes.
think maybe that might help a little bit with the whole comments situation
Yes,
so we can
totally.
cross-pollinate things. So today's topic, do you want to get into like what we're talking about today, like the wild feminine nature of what
Yes,
we're
yes,
embodying?
absolutely. So both Rachel and I absolutely love this topic, and we have a lot of different interpretations of it. So the wild feminine, to me, is the potential to create and transform. And this is an aspect of the feminine that every person has access to. You know, it's obviously women may have more free flowing access, but every person will have access to it. And the transformation with the wild feminine happens by accepting everything exactly as it is. Whatever is there is accepted, received, composted, and any aspect of waste is repurposed for something else. Nothing is rejected. So no aspect of the self is scorned. There's no societal constructs, right? Because this is the wild, unbound aspect of the feminine. And so one of the aspects we're exploring is the intelligence and the wisdom of a forest, right? Like the ecosystems of forests, marshlands, deserts, tundras, where all of this exists, and there is this wild, unurbaned access to everything, right? Like it's why we love going out for a walk in the forest and here, and we feel so calm and relaxed. There are energetic reasons because we access these energies, and then we ourselves become calm because we are connected to abundance and overflow. So that is an aspect that we are expressing today through these two characters, the keeper of the forest and the forest spirit, Princess Mononoke, and Poison Ivy, who is kind of like this anti-heroine, misunderstood keeper and stewardess of the green. So that is my understanding. Rachel, do you have anything to add to that?
Let me see. I'm just checking our show notes to keep me. We took a break. That's basically it as well. Like we had a little bit of a hiatus. We came back to the drawing board in terms of like our creative juices and stuff. And I saw Squishy the Seal in there who's working on his own book. And I feel like that seal aspect and embodying like animal spirits is a big part of this as well, because I know Poison Ivy and if I think of Poison Ivy with like Catwoman
Yes.
and Harley
Yeah.
Quinn, like I've have comic books where Batgirl works together with them when it comes to like animal rescue or like
Yeah.
anything that has to do with nature. Batgirl will actually work with like Poison Ivy and Catwoman, even though they seem like they're villains. And to add to that, like the Wild Woman can sometimes be seen as a villain because Princess Mononoke, even in the anime, she's what I like about Princess Mononoke as well, like that anime, it's not just so easy, like cut and dry of like nature's all good and tree hugging and all that kind of stuff too. Like, there's respect that's required with that. And we're going to get into those details as well, because it's not as simple as like, I love nature. And, like you could, like if everyone saw that movie Call of the Wild, where the guy's like, I just want to go to Alaska and like be with
Yes.
society, but you didn't prep properly. You didn't like know how to grow your own food. You didn't know how to actually work with nature. So nature owned you and kicked your ass. So it's just like learning about like to have respect for it, but then also be aware of like the different parts that we embody as well. So
I
yeah.
love that. I love that. All right. So are you ready to get into it?
Yes, let's get into it. Let me see. I had some new people join. So just to let everybody know, in terms of questions, comments, concerns, all that kind of good stuff, we will leave all of that till the end of this segment. But for now, I think what we'll do is we'll go into, I guess, some storytelling about each of the characters that we're embodying as far as like wild, feminine nature, spirit, goddess energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I actually love how so I actually never watched the Princess Mononoke anime. I think I've just watched like some scenes over time, but I love this thing you said, like it's not all, oh, I love nature, kumbaya. Like it isn't that, because Princess Mononoke is very angry at humans and extremely pissed off, right? So this is actually so on Amazon Prime, I found the 1960s Batman, like from the 60s, the animated cartoon. And so I was like, oh, this is amazing. So one of the first episodes in the first season is this, Batman's having lunch with his friend, Harvey Dent. So this is before Harvey Dent is Two-Face, and Harvey Dent's going on a date with this beautiful woman. Her name is Pamela Isley. Yeah. And then he starts getting very sick. So as we know, Poison Ivy's, Christian name, I guess, or the name her parents gave her is Pamela Isley. And she's actually quite learned. Like she's a PhD of botany. She's a biochemist. So right, she's like highly, highly educated. And depending on the story, she was either like born this way, there's a mutation, or she had an accident. But she has this like chemical resonance with the plant and sometimes animal realm. So Harvey Dent goes on a date with her. She kisses him. He gets paralyzed. He gets put into a coma. He gets really sick. In that story, we learn that Harvey Dent, as an attorney or something, he, Gotham City built some school, and they built it on a conservation area where certain rare plants were growing. And he was like, oh, this land is available. We'll build a hospital. And Pamela Isley was like, you actually killed rare budding species, and humans aren't rare. So this was her revenge. And we see Pamela, like Poison Ivy, like this. She, unlike other villains of the DC universe, she's not like, I want money, I want this. She is enraged by the violation of the natural world, or what's called the green, right? So there is one of the comics I just recently read was called No Man's Land. So Gotham City is like, I don't know, abandoned, or there's a bomb or something goes off and it's quite unlivable. There's stray survivors. Poison Ivy takes over this garden, and crime is rampant. And so Penguin leaves her alone if she provides like food to his side. So she's providing like produce and all of this stuff, and she gathers orphans because the city is disastrous. And then Clayface comes and he attacks her and he imprisons her, and he sticks her in concrete and salt. So she becomes weakened. Her life force drains. He buries her so she doesn't have access to the sun. And he imprisons these children and enslaves them until Batman comes and frees her.
This is a 60s cartoon.
So now I've moved.
Right.
This is a comic book called No Man's Land.
Storyline.
And so in this, there's a fight with Batman. They defeat Clayface, and Pamela Isley goes, kisses him, and he starts turning from the inside out and becoming this grove of trees. And Batman is horrified and he can't stop her in time. But again, it's this aspect where he has societal constructs, morality, good versus bad. She doesn't have any of that.
Yeah.
Right? So
nature does what nature does, right? I think that's the thing too, but when it comes to even things like death or cycles or things like that, it's death is a part of life. And with the whole dichotomy of Poison Ivy's character, who's a villain, right? And Batgirl talks a lot about how she feels like she's not necessarily fighting villains in the city, she's fighting the city itself.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I love this so it's called green, right? And from images of Gotham City, it's very, very concrete. And so there's a lot. I think you lent me Manslaughter, which is
where they have there's a huge disease in Gotham City, and all the men are dying, and then all
the men are dying. Pamela Isley does not care. Poison Ivy does not care about men, right? She generally sees them as perpetrators, right? Because the mayor or the whatever, and she's generally fine with Batman. but she doesn't like men. So there's even this dialogue where Batgirl and Canary, they're all like, can you help us? And she's like, why? And I don't know what they say to convince her, but she ends up, like, she works with plant and animal toxins. Again, she's a biochemist, right? So she ends up helping them because her friend, Serena Kyle, Catwoman, also helps them for like a reason. So like, she is good. Like she has a very clear purpose. Like, is this helping nature?
Yes, exactly. And her MO and her motivation is primarily like the green. Her loyalty is to Mother Earth.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So like, tell us a bit about Princess Mononoke, because I have not seen the anime.
Yes.
So what's her backstory?
Someone actually said in the chat, Dark Garo, I think, was it, you remind me of an anime I watched that has that symbol on your face. So I'm like, this is Princess Mononoke. There are other animes. Like, anime is known for, you love the Airbender series.
I do.
So, like,
he does like, have arrows.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So like, a lot of the animes, like this is water, really, right? The triangle facing downward, right? The receptive quality, but it's red, right? So it's this interesting, dichotomy, right?
Polarity,
between like receptive feminine energy, but also being fire, which is very masculine. So it's Princess Mononoke is that. So she's known as a princess because in the world of Princess Mononoke, there is the concept of forest spirits. And each forest has a guardian or protector. And we open the anime with a prince named Prince, oh my gosh, I need to say his name properly. Prince Takashi.
It's something with an A, right?
No, it's Prince. Maybe you're right. Atachi?
Prince. Yeah, something like that.
You're right. Yes, but I want to say it properly. Because if I say it wrong, and like it's just like it ruins the whole thing. Because he's actually very important.
Okay.
Someone tell me what the name is. Then Ashitaka. That's it. Ashitaka. So Prince Ashitaka has a curse placed on him because he's fighting this demon. And so we don't know at this point in time like what caused the demon, but the demon like infects this like earth spirit that used to be a boar, and it starts to like attack people. So in the prince fighting him, he gets this curse, and he has to go to try to find the great spirit of life. And so he goes to try to find the spirit of life, and he's like exiled from his like land of warriors to do this. So he's like going to find another forest, and he comes upon Irontown. And so Irontown, that's the thing, like it's a city, right? And it's like they're making weapons, and it's like encroaching on the forest. And Princess Mononoke was like a girl who was like orphaned in the forest, and she's basically been raised up as a wolf. She thinks of herself as a wolf. And so her mother is the great wolf spirit of the forest, and her two brothers are two wolves that she rides and causes havoc to people trying to like do things in the forest or cut the trees down. But she kills a lot of people. She's known as like a demon, and they don't like her right. and the wolves, and they're always trying to kill the wolves. But in the end, you kind of realize that it's not quite so simple, right? As being like, oh, Irontown's so bad, because I forget the lady who's like kind of like the dichotomy between Princess Mononoke and I forget her name, but she actually like employs like lepers in her employ, and she's actually like a compassionate person in some regards, right? She's not necessarily like evil, even though she does like evil things, and she like loves shooting guns and stuff, and like so there's like it's so much more complicated. So the long story short of it is that the evil Irontown people cut off the head of the great spirit of life, and what this does is it causes havoc everywhere, and like everything, like the whole like reality is at stake. Princess Mononoke, they rejig everything, return the head, and everything goes back to what it is. But that's like an abridged version, but it is a conflict between the great spirits of the forest, and they find out that the demon and like all that kind of stuff is caused by the pollution, right? Like the
shocker,
the sludge, all that kind of stuff causes it's like a more mystical quality to it, but it causes these great spirits to become like demonic in nature, right? And so like it's just about that. And she's a princess because she's a princess of the forest, and she doesn't consider herself human, right? So she's very like, she's just like, I'm a wolf. I'm not like a human being. But she of course falls in love with the prince, and like they work together because he comes from a clan, a tribe that is very reverent of the forest.
Right.
So she's like, oh, like I didn't realize there were humans that actually live that way with
Right.
forests, right? So it
Yeah,
opens
because
her eyes.
isn't she very angry, and the whole relationship with him and her is like he's showing her that like, oh, humans can be stewards, like we can take care.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
all of us are crazy, like or violent towards. Yeah.
And I
Okay.
mean, like, she's kind of like a feral animal in some regards, too. When
Yes. Yes.
she'll like to have her knives and like, don't touch me, don't cut. And,
Right.
you know, one of those things where it's just like, I'm just trying to help you. And she's like, I just don't hurt me. Don't, like, she's
Well,
got a
you
lot
know
of.
what? Like that's a lot of Poison Ivy as well before she kind of befriends the sirens, right? Before she befriends Catwoman and Harley Quinn, because it's this thing, right? When you're afraid and alone, and you've only ever experienced like the violation in Mononoke's case of the forest, in Pamela Isley's case, the green, then you're always like defensive and like ready for a fight, and you can't trust people. And that is, I think that's often a common aspect that like women might express when they're like, I'm independent, I don't need anyone. Like we have to be in our masculine because for whatever reason our experience has been like more on the receiving end of whatever this unwanted energy is, and that makes us more, maybe not feral, but like,
Yeah,
right?
it's
So
yeah, you're basically like that wild, untamed, like that spirit of like you can only be pushed. So you're pushing a wild animal into a corner.
yes.
So what do you think's gonna happen? Like I'm gonna bite your head off, and
You will, yes, or
yeah,
poison you from the inside.
yes, and it's I think on a level, it's just where we can kind of understand these characters
Yeah.
and their motivations, right? And that's
Yeah.
ultimately like when I all my comic book readings. Hey, Mr. Top Ramen. Mr. Top Ramen calls me and Kevin his internet parents. So I,
Oh, that's adorable. Oh my gosh.
but I think the main thing with Princess Mononoke and that whole story is that I don't want to call it a trope because that kind of like makes it more mundane, I think, but it's about just like that nugget of truth that's in like Fern Gully and Avatar, and this idea of there is a better way to be living with nature. Um, and it's not to dominate and to like impose your will upon it, right? Because resources are resources, right? You still need the elements and materials from the earth to create things like tech and weapons and all of those. Those come from somewhere. You didn't just like
Yeah.
make them. You had a raw material and you created something from it. So it's just instead of taking it, perhaps more of like a synergistic flow of energy, right? And I think because it's just been so much abuse, these characters hit a point where it's like almost like justified vengeance towards.
Yeah. So
towards
Poison Ivy uses the word encroachment a lot, which means like someone needed something. So they came and cut a tree and then they left. She's like, okay, fine, whatever. But like then 9,000 people come and an entire forest is raised and all the animals in place. So then that's like, there's like, it's worse and worse. So this, I think it speaks more to like that consumerism, right? Like Irontown, Gotham City, like concrete iron. I think when we were talking before, you brought up the idea of progress, right? Like, and
Yeah.
in our current society, we're like, oh, I have like the city of Toronto where we live, and our idea of progress is to keep encroaching, drying up the water tables, and just put condo after condo after condo, even though not a lot of people live there and can afford to. But we're following a sterile idea of progress. And I think this is where like that like unbounded rage of the feminine in like forest spirit, and then like Poison Ivy when she's pissed off, like that kind of rises. It's like, it's almost like that's like the hot fire, heat, passion of the feminine aspect against the cold, sterile aspect of the masculine, which is like progress, thought, buildings, right? Like that's sort that it's trying to actually
100%.
come to balance.
I think as well, you touched upon it well, like it's the progress aspect of it, and Gotham City itself too is a city of like progress, right? It's supposed to be like New York City. It's an archetype of like a city. I was doing some like looking into research into Gotham. Actually, this is a funny story because Kevin was playing Arkham. I'm playing Arkham Knights right now, the video game.
Oh yeah.
But, think Arkham Asylum, there is a you have to fight poison ivy.
Yeah.
This is where he got stuck, and I was like, well, how did you get stuck fighting poison ivy? I'm like,
Yeah.
isn't she easy? Like what's she gonna do? But she like uses this like huge Venus flytrap monster thing, and like that's how she's like fight. So it's about like using like your the plants at all the plants at your disposal, right? If you think about that, and like things like pheromones, if I think about even Swamp Thing, like that Alan Moore likes, like that concept of like the green and protectors of the forest, of the like of the earth, right? And not having that be conflated with things that are more political, like climate change, right? Because
Yes.
it gets like that becomes like an NLP and like what we're calling things, right? Like Icy has names for her plants. Icy.
Ivy has names for her plants. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I mean, so, you know, it's an interesting like thing between Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy in the DC universe. Like Swamp Thing wants to be left alone.
Yes.
Poison Ivy doesn't go and live with Swamp Thing. After his last dance, yeah, too much progress poisoning the city. Like Poison Ivy is weird. So in the 60s Batman one, there's this episode in the third season where like Poison Ivy is married to a man and she has two young boys. And Batman is like, I'm sorry, what? And you can see he really wants to believe her, but he's just had so many terrible experiences.
I can't. Yeah.
He's like, I can't. And he's like, you know what? I will. I'll believe her. It's good. And then like 5 things happen. It turns out, so because of her hyperactive plant-based immune system, she's actually sterile. She cannot have babies herself.
Interesting.
And so her solution to this problem, and this is a weird episode because this is one of the few times that she's actually serving herself. She kind of like, so she splices human DNA with like plant DNA to make these like babies. But because she's using like a man's DNA, they're sons, they're boys. But again, like she's very good at being a biochemist. But you know, these children are boys, and then they become like a swampy creature after a while. So she has to keep making more and more, and they're born in this Venus flytrap kind of thing. So when you said that, I was like, oh my god,
it's like a little incubator for them, maybe.
Yes. Yeah, so it's an incubator for babies, and like this human comes out, and then after like 5 days, it becomes like a plant, and then it becomes really tall, and then it is subservient to her.
Oh, they're like her minions, kind of like plant.
Yeah, like her minion. So Batman is like, I mean, like, why? Why did you do this? Like, what the hell? So, you know what, like, yes, like for the most part, and I think in more modern comics, she, like, this was weird. I think this was like in the late. This episode was probably in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, like sci-fi.
It was the sci-fi episode. I was actually creeped out. I was like, dang, that is a weird episode.
Well, you know what? Like, I read a Swamp Thing comic book on this show where Swamp Thing reaches out. Well, he doesn't reach out to Constantine. He makes Constantine do this. He takes over Constantine's body, and I didn't realize that Swamp Thing can take over people's bodies.
Yeah, I don't think he can always do that. I think that's like some comics.
Okay. So in some comics, I guess like because like he can like go in and I guess like infiltrate your like neurological system, like almost like interface. Anyways, and he does this with Constantine for whatever reason, so that Constantine can sleep with his lady love and they can have a sprout. And it's like all because apparently Constantine and Swamp Thing have some sort of cosmic connection, synastry between them. And then it's like done on like a full moon. And then it's funny because the scene happens where like Constantine Swamp Thing is like doing it with his lady love.
Yeah.
And then it's like, there's a panel. It's like, it happened. I'm pregnant. And like, how do you know? Because Swamp Thing was like, I guess like the pheromones.
Like, he is very, yes.
You can sense that like, oh, the egg met and like the sperm, and now the sprout has happened. But it's interesting how like childbirth and reproduction is a thing that's well, I guess it's life, right? If you think about it, like in Justice Comics, Swamp Thing versus Poison Ivy was a good fight.
Ooh. Oh, who won?
Someone pointed that demon slap out on my chat. Like they know so much intel, but I didn't know this.
Yeah,
is
but who won? Like who wins
who
between
won
Swamp
in Swamp Thing versus Poison Ivy?
Yeah.
Ivy won.
Oh yeah. So I mean, she has a similar. I don't know. I don't think she takes over people's bodies, but like I remember that in No Man's Land when she's killing Clayface, she's kind of like holding on to him, and like from inside him, like a tree plant thing is growing and taking over all his organs until he goes into massive organ failure because he is becoming a tree. And it's very like it ends with like plants coming out of his mouth kind of thing, and Batman's like trying to stop her and he can't, and it's like a whole vibe. Oh, thank you for the roses and the hearts. That's amazing. But you know, the one thing I wanted to say, like Princess Mononoke meets a boy, like a human boy, and like starts to have a relationship with other humans. So Pamela Isley, when she was young, I think felt very perhaps isolated. So she found kinship in the plant realm.
Oh
But
no,
it's
I should refrain from that. Like Princess Mononoke never like re-enters human society. She
doesn't, but she comes to like understand and like deal with some of her anger, right? She does not?
Not really.
Oh, okay, never mind. I thought she
yeah, no, because like they reboot I would say like they reboot the system, let's say. Like you know like in Fern Gully, if you've seen it, where she flies into like the pit of hell, basically. You like fly right into like the depths of it.
Right.
Because like you have the seed of life to rebirth everyone.
Okay.
So it's that kind of concept where like all these like little slugs are coming over them, and her and Princess Ashitaka hold hands, and like it overcomes all of them, and then just everything just restarts.
okay.
So it's like that kind of
so
moment.
maybe this right, okay, fair, totally fair. I don't know the story, but I guess my point. Okay.
She just leaves. Like she just is like, I don't
want to. Okay.
Let's do humans. I'm gonna do my thing. Now that we've like done this, we're gonna keep to like the forest, and you guys keep there. But I myself am a wolf, and even though like I've realized that we can coexist, that there is a boundary required.
Okay. No, that's totally cool. I guess one of the things I was noticing with the Poison Ivy arc is when she joins the Sirens, like with Harlequin and Catwoman, she actually kind of like, I think it's like the first time she has friends. So she's like more, she villains less, unless like they are like a reason she might do it is if, you know, Selena Kyle needs a cat shelter, and then Poison Ivy will like do something and then they will get money so that there's like a plant and a cat shelter. And I don't know what Harlequin's thing is in here, but she's just friends with them. So hi, Voice of One. Oh, thanks. Oh, look at all the hearts. Thank you guys.
The whole Harley Quinn cartoon has the sirens.
Right. Okay. I actually haven't watched the Harley Quinn cartoon.
I'm not familiar with the sirens though, actually. Can you who formed the siren? Who's sirens?
They're like the antithesis. Like they're not always villains. But sometimes they're villains. It's Harlequin, Catwoman, and Selena Kyle. Sorry.
Yeah.
And Poison Ivy. The three of them form it. I think other people join it. They're sort of they're anti-heroines, so they get into
anti-heroes,
whatever for their reason. There's a lot of like
this League Dark or something like that, where you have like the I would say if you look, it's funny because like Catwoman, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy, they're all very like, I would consider them smart, and in a sense of like also their alter egos are actually also very powerful in a not traditionally feminine way, right? Because like they're like doctors or like researchers, or like in Selena Kyle's case being a cat burglar as well. Like it's more like physicality wise, it's more of a masculine thing. But then on the other end, like your alter ego is like, you know, harnessing your shadow side of feminine, right? And like the part that's attached to like, you know, the ultimate power of like creation, destruction, and all that stuff.
No, for sure. Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much for all of the hearts. Hi, Wandering Wizard. Hi, Voice of One.
Hi guys. Hello. It's been a minute, you guys, right? It's been a little while.
It's been a while.
And people were asking who I was. I am not I am Princess Mononoke. I'm an anime. This is like anime meets Gotham, like the DC
Gotham,
universe.
yes.
Like Princess Mononoke's like, she would have a fit in Gotham, actually.
Oh
She'd
my
have a really,
God. Yeah.
yeah.
You know, it's this funny thing. Like, I don't know why Poison Ivy never like left Gotham and goes somewhere. Like she chooses to live there.
Where does she live in Gotham? Does she have her own little like poison ivy lair? You know, like
Yeah, she does.
yeah.
She's
In
different.
which
Like,
case,
I
I
think
can understand that.
Batman keeps finding them, so she has to make other like he does send her to Arkham fairly often, but she eludes him
Yes.
fairly often, like fairly often. And it's this thing, right? I'm totally, I may be making this up, but I think that he knows that she isn't the same level of evil as the Joker, who just like does things for like psychotic reasons. So I feel like if she's in a bind, like No Man's Land is really interesting because like his first instinct is to help her.
Yeah.
And he's,
I mean,
he's
Batman
angry
himself
with
is
her.
kind of an anti-hero too, right? Like he doesn't necessarily go by the book either. Like I was reading a Batgirl and Supergirl crossover comic, and they wanted to break into like Wayne Tech level security, and then Batgirl's like, why don't you just ask Batman for help? And Supergirl's like, no, we are not asking Batman for help. He's gonna take this over and like do things his way and do this, and like, and he's gonna want to follow all this stuff, so no. And so I was like, oh yeah, because like Batman himself is not necessarily like the card in the deck on the board who's going to do everything like by protocol necessarily, and he also
Right,
did the
for sure.
shadows. So
That's true. One thing I did remember about the sirens, like the trinity of Ivy, Catwoman, and Harlequin, is that though I didn't watch the sirens cartoon, but like a few of the comics have them reinforcing each other, kind of like Birds of Prey do. Like they are supportive of each other in like a very like female friends positive type of way, and they're often against, like each of them have serious issues, right? Like Harlequin is again like fighting with the Joker because he's like an abusive boyfriend type character. Selena Kyle is very much like the world has wronged me, so I'm going to steal from you, right? Like it's whatever their duality is that they're fighting against. Like Poison Ivy is like, I don't know, doesn't really like men or organization or structure or cities. So they have these big energies that they are fighting against, but the three of them are like a little nest, which is kind of like the energy of Birds of Prey, but like the Birds of Prey are good. They're heroes.
yeah,
Like,
but like that's the thing, right? Like good and evil or villain. It's like it depends on the story that you're in, right? Because in that manslaughter comic book, Poison Ivy saved the day. She came up with the antidote that like saved everybody, right? Even though she didn't even really want to help, but like in the end, she's like, fine, I'll do it. Right.
Yes.
Demon Slapout says that Ivy's goal is to make the world all nature, while Wayne Tech is all technology. I do find it interesting how Wayne Tech also just gets involved in weird, nefarious stuff.
Yeah, it reminds me of Stark Industries. Like it's more clear in Marvel. Like Stark Industries made its fame because of weapons and war. Wayne Tech is like, yeah, we do like nice stuff, but then they do like weird surveillance stuff too. And it's like, what is this?
Yes. So you'd think Poison Ivy would move to rainforest over living in a city.
Like, why? Why doesn't she go that? I know. What? Like she should just, be roommates with Swamp Thing or like be in the next forest. But then we would not have her. We wouldn't have her around in, to battle Batman.
You know what though? In Arkham Knight, which I just played and like actually was like streaming it, it's funny because Batman does something and he's like, I'm taking you into custody, Poison Ivy. And so you do this whole level where Poison Ivy's in the car with you and you have to like beat up all these guys with the car. And in the car, the whole time she's just making snarky comments like, who taught you to drive? And like,
So weird.
And then like in the end, like he puts her like in custody for like to make sure she doesn't like align with anyone else. But she's just a wild card to me, right? Like she is serving her own like moral compass in a like Constantine to me, like where like you could call it a villain, but it just means that like her own game that she's playing deals with like nature first. And so when other people's alignments go with that, she'll help you out. But otherwise, it's cool. And in some regards, it's going to just push up against each other. But are there other like nature, like DC heroes?
Aside from Swamp Thing?
Yeah, besides Swamp Thing.
Actually, this is a question for you guys, audience. If we
Ooh.
want to segue, I was thinking about like outside. This doesn't have to be like DC comic or the Princess Mononoke universe, but like, do you have a favorite like ecological related superhero or like a fantasy character?
Captain Planet, right?
Yeah, like Captain Planet, or actually, you know what? I was even thinking Storm to a degree, like
Yeah.
right, like she is like as a person, Aurora
Embodying
is
like the
yeah,
Earth's like
yes,
weather systems and all
yes,
that kind
yes,
of stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and like what are those energies? Like for me, it's like Avatar: Last Airbender. Or there's this really cute fantasy show called The Dragon Prince, and there are like trees, so like the elves or something, or they're like tree elves and moon elves and star elves.
Yeah.
So the tree elves, they whenever they greet each other, they say "trees to meet you," and
we should
all
do
their magical abilities are blossom related. Like it's so adorable. It's like trees to me. So there's like big battle happening, and they're just like, oh, like this plant has a new leaf.
I love that. No, but we should always rejoice for stuff like that. I think, okay, let's see here. Demon Slapout, I don't know if you mean Ra Al Ghul is your favorite ecological superhero. I don't think he counts. But anyways,
Is he ecological?
I don't think so.
Actually, Ra's al Ghul has like in Young Justice, which I talk about ad nauseum.
Well, you know what? No,
But
that's your what should we call that? It's like
my
pillars
universe?
of like info of like, because like I have like certain comic books that you refer to, and
Yes.
it would go on.
So, so Poison Ivy isn't a main character in Young Justice at all, but there is this one episode where she's joined up with some other superheroes, including Ra's al Ghul, and they're trying to create a distraction wherever they are in Gotham. And so the kids, the Young Just, like all the progenies are they're trying to sort these guys out while the actual Justice League is elsewhere. And so what is happening is Poison Ivy's made this massive vine that's just like breaking Gotham. Like it's like the size of a skyscraper. So they've warped magic with technology and like rhythm in some way, and they've like fused Joker venom with Poison Ivy's stuff. So like her vine has this like flower, and if you like hit the flower, it bursts with Joker venom. So then everyone starts laughing. So it's really like violent and complex. Anyway, so she is like feeding power to this vine, and she's like, listen, this is getting too much. Like the vine is in pain. And Ra's al Ghul is like, don't worry, Ivy, we'll take care of her. And it's like the only interaction they have. And again, like what they're doing is psychotic. It's insane. And yet there's this moment of like compassion, and he's like, don't worry, we'll take care of her. And he like feeds whatever his like power is into the vine. So the vine is like a bit more supported. And then obviously the Justice League kills the vine and blah, blah, blah. And like, but it was this really like interesting moment where you see like him protecting, helping, supporting her. And all she cares about is her vine is safe. Like, she's not even directing you. She's not telling you where to go. She's like, oh no, the plant is in pain. Like,
Well, I mean, like I feel like there's a few science fiction episodes that deal with this too, right? Or shows that deal with this on like the other end of it, right? Remember that movie, The Happening, with Mark Wahlberg?
yes.
Right, where it's like the trees were like attacking people or like making everyone kill themselves, that kind of thing.
Right.
Really bad acting, but like funny in a weird way.
Right. Yes.
So there's that, and there's another one. There's an episode of Space 1999, which I laugh at all the time, called "The Judges of Luton," and there they go to this planet. And they're like, oh, the plants are edible, and they start eating them, and then like there's this like track of like screaming and like ah, and they're like, oh my gosh, and then you hear this voice like, cannibals, you've eaten members of our society, you are now being judged to fight to the death with these other people who like ate plants. So it's like the episode was really dumb, but the concept too that like plants are conscious, that is a truth, right? But there is another level of like, okay, yes, but just like with everything else, it's all like in like nothing is, you can't just like, oh, like it's always good to be on the side of like living nature stuff. Because like you can also look at things like zombies and other little motifs where like a life and living, and like the flood in Halo, for example, where like it's a living organism, but it's a very like parasitic living organism,
right?
Or like this level of like its stuff is out of balance, and so it's causing like where you need to have a forest fire, where you need to have something burn things
to cleanse
down,
it,
it can be like renourished, and you can grow new things as opposed to being choked by perhaps maybe an invading species or things like that. So there's all these other things going on, and when human beings try to interfere by like putting a road through it and a pipeline here and a something over there, it's like you're throwing a lot of things out of whack. And then we have things like mudslides and stuff that happen to cities where it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't have put a city in the middle of
the valley,
right? Yeah. And so like and you've caused these other things downstream, and it's so much. We are as human beings are not separate from nature.
We
are like the human beast, right? And although we are capable of like order and like technology and all that kind of stuff too, it's like you still have like the beast within you. And so to be aware of that and not to be like, that's over here, over there, outside of the fence, outside the gate where all the wild things live. Like, and so it's just a level of like, you know, incorporating that.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Apathy's Last Dance, you're right. So this is the M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Happening, that Rachel was talking about. The part that I remember is the beginning where he's like, oh, the bees are missing, kind of. I think it opens with something like that. And again, it's all these little like hints we're getting that, oh, I think we are it's not like nature is out of balance. We are out of balance with nature. And again, the solution isn't like Poison Ivy or Princess Mononoke. I feel like they are like
they're an extreme level of it, and of course it's extreme circumstances, right, as well, right, where you're going to be in a position where like, okay, well, I'm going to get you back, or like in the case where like you're protecting your forest and there people are literally coming in and taking over your home, and you're like, this is my home. And I say that in terms of us even being, you know, children of the earth and the planet, like this is our home, like we live here, and so we're all stewards and guardians of the planet. We're not here to just take and use things and be like, well, like,
but I think, you know, I see commonality with like this kind of story arc and like Dances with Wolves and Avatar, not Avatar Airbender, like Avatar, like, you know, the movie in the planet or the land of Pandora, right? Like where you have these like natural beings or an indigenous species that is very connected, very attuned to the natural world, and like there's this book called Braiding Sweetgrass, which like is one of my favorite books. Yeah, I reference it often.
More about it. It's very, I think it's relevant to what we're talking about.
It is relevant because it requires the perspective, like according to this author, it requires the perspective of, is exactly what you said, Rachel, like seeing ourselves as part of nature and kin with every other aspect of nature. So like when something is out of balance, if like there's an invasive species, or like we live in Ontario where a lot of our ash trees have this insect called the ash borer, which came from somewhere else, like somewhere else in the world. That particular beetle is not native to here, but obviously it came. And now we have like an entire tree species, the elm tree, under threat. And so because we have forgotten that we are part of nature, we tend to act separate. I'm not like, oh, I'm hungry, I'm going to take this apple, or I'm going to like, you know, it'll be like, I'm just going to cut all these trees and plant one type of wheat, right? Like, again, this like monoculture, because we value efficiency over the efficiency of a forest where everything grows, everyone is fed, everyone is eaten. And so, Voice of One, the four sacred medicines of the medicine wheel, right? Like, if you value any one over the other, it does not, the wheel collapses. It's not a wheel. You're just like hyper-focused into one. But you need all of them. They all grow together. And that is the wisdom of the ecosystem, which I think to me calls back to the wild feminine, right? The wild feminine is not motivated by like a mono pathway, one type of focalized efficiency. It's not the efficiency of a concrete highway from point A to point B. It's the efficiency that allows every species, every plant, every animal, every human, and every aspect of our being to rise, come to blossom, and when it's time, wilt, and then that nourishes and composts and something else grows. It is the wisdom of seasons.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no, it's oh my gosh, there's a lot there. Like the medicine wheel, everyone having their place, like on a superhero team, like us cosplaying as who we are. Like that's what there's a reason why you chose Poison Ivy and I chose Princess Mononoke, right? Because there's space for all of these different lenses by which we can have these relationships, right? And so it's an invitation for you to look at your own relationship with nature and your own inner wild beast nature and like figure how to like work with it and like play with it a bit more and like let it have a bit of like time to like stretch their legs and get some exercise, because that's really like what ends up happening if you like hold it all in and just, I feel like that's why we feel like it's scary or we have anxiety or all these other things about like not feeling right, all come from a place of like, oh, we're just not integrated as much as we were once upon a time. And we have memories of when us as like a human species were. So I think we're coming back to that though. I think that's why like we do this show. We have solstice coming up. It's a good segue into all of like the spicy cosmic energy we have right now. And I think like the awakening like within us, right, of like the superhero within. And if you think of a forest, right, a tree, a mushroom, the fox, the snail, they're all doing their thing. And it's all in the, like, it's no one like, you're not doing that fast enough, or you're not here at this time, or not. It's like the forest is just being the forest, right? And
in perfect time. Yeah.
Exactly. When you're meant to, and like you're blooming when you're supposed to, and like, and dying.
When you're supposed to is a big one. Yeah.
And so that the next cycle can begin, and just also just being lucid in the dream of like, oh yeah, like this is really actually quite a magical thing. So
yeah. And like, so my neighbor is away on this like 6-month trip to South America, and he's having like this like deep in the Ecuadorian forest journey, which he really like totally needs to have. So I'm watering his plants. He has as many plants as I do.
That's cool though.
It is cool. And like, it's interesting, right? Because like, they're not like, it's in his house. They're not my plants. And like, he doesn't tend to them the same way I tend to mine. So there's like, well, he's a boy and he lives alone. And so it's like half the fern is like dead. And then like from death, from like the dead leaves, there's new fern. And I was like, what is this? And so the first time I went with so much judgment, and I'm like, he's doing it wrong. So I'm like trimming them, and he has like 40 plants, like just about as many as I have. And this was a learning for me. Like I faced my own earthy judgment, because I'm like trimming fern after fern after fern. I was there for 2 hours. And I was exhausted, and then I got all angry. I was
getting mad at like, I did all this work.
Yeah, I did all this work, and like this dude like is in the forest. The funny thing is, he didn't even ask me. Right? I was like, I took this upon myself, and then I was tired, then I was angry, then I was offended. I pushed I was angry in like a funny way.
I know.
Anyway, so like I went there, I got over it. I was like, I'm the one being insane here. But it's that kind of like dynamic, right? Where like the wildness in us is like, oh, I'll just, and I'm like, no, and rest and pull back. And if there's dead leaves, there's dead leaves.
That's
right?
true.
Like, yeah, tree pruning 1-on-1. Yeah, exactly. Like, honor the boundaries kind of vibe. Anyway, they're all trimmed now. So
that's
like
good. No, that's someone had messaged here, like I had this anime game where Princess Mononoke had this big wolf for her super move. So I guess her move is like the wolf. I'm gonna get to the wolf in just a second. And Mikey says, love what we're doing, which is super cool. And we fight hard to save our old growth forest here to stop monoculture. Good for you, Mikey.
Yeah.
Doing the Earth Warrior thing. And Voice of One saying it is in unlocking your super soul and understanding yourself. Totally true.
Love that.
Yeah. The wolf stuff, you guys know I have Wolfie, right? And so I have my own, I call Wolfie my great wolf spirit. I tell him like, you're my great wolf spirit, the embodiment of all of the Wolfie energies in you. And in me taking care of Wolfie, I'm also taking care of like what I think of as like all spirits of wolves and dogs. And so it's been quite a thing to be a dog mom. Like I've gone through a lot with Wolfie, where like
Yeah.
like dental problems, and like he had this cone on the few times that he came over and did the
Yes.
show with me, because
Yes.
he's really rambunctious. He doesn't really know where he is in time space sometimes, so he'll jump before he's supposed to, and like smash certain things and hurt himself. But all
Mm.
those things, like going to the vet, to having him do dental, which was like thousands of dollars, basically putting my own needs aside to
Right.
take care of like another little like dog being. And some say like, oh, that's just like a pet, but it's like, I know, like
Again,
I talk to Wolfie, he
yeah.
understands exactly what I'm saying to him, and so I think that whether we're taking care of plants or animals, or even like I think of like when you go out walking and you see sparrows, or you see a crow, or you interact with like the wildness out there, and there's a connection where they recognize you, and you
Yeah.
see them, and you're like, oh, like this is like thousands of years ago, we're in the forest, and like we're just like, this is
Yeah,
all
and
one
it's a
thing, right?
yeah, and it's a call and response. So I actually have a funny story about this. I have this friend. So I have a kinship with birds. I mean, with plants as well, but specifically with like what Gemini-ness. So with
Yeah.
birds.
Actually, we should probably talk about that after you finish your story about like
Okay.
your
So
elemental stuff.
yeah, sure. So I have this friend who like she was very awkward around birds. So her and I were in
People
Vancouver
don't like
together.
birds.
Yeah, I don't trust people who don't like birds. Anyway, so her and I were in Vancouver together, and like Vancouver is a lot of crows because it's a seaside town.
Yeah.
And so I'm walking, and I was like whatever. My personal experience was I was having a certain thought, and then like a crow would make a certain type of sound, and at that time, I wasn't communing with the crow at all, but I was coming to appreciate the call and response because crows, as you know, they can traverse the multidimensional realm and things like that.
Mhm. Crows
And
and
so these,
ravens, the
like,
blackbird. Yeah.
exactly. So like my experience was like I'm walking and these like crows are kind of flying like hop. So like I had like crows follow me or like me follow them, but like they were on their trees. And then I'm walking with my friend and they started dive bombing her. And she's like, oh, I hate them. Oh my God, look. And they did. They came this close, squawked, and then flew up at her. Not at me, at
Were
her.
they trying to protect you?
I don't know. Actually, that's a good point. I don't know if they were protecting, but they just didn't like whatever vibe she was. So she was complaining about them. And then in
Oh.
response, they dive bombed her.
Well,
So
they hurt her.
they heard her is my part of the story. They heard her and they're like, whoever this is unworthy of our like vibe. And so we had to cross the street and leave the neighborhood.
Oh my God.
And like I was less than a foot away from her.
Where
And
was this?
nothing.
Was it in Toronto or no?
Vancouver.
Vancouver. Okay, yeah, because there's the crows there. Someone said in Black Clover, when birds attack you when you have low magic energy.
I will tell her that. I love that. But we were asking if you guys are around, like who is your favorite eco-related character? And Rachel, I remembered one in the DC comics. There is an Atlantean called Dolphin.
Oh, yes. Oh my
Right?
gosh. And she's
Also,
cute.
all the Atlanteans,
Yes,
they
that's
like
true. All the
even-
Atlanteans are very ecological, I'd say. Yeah.
right? Like a lot of Atlanteans have issues with land humans because they keep polluting the ocean, including Aquaman. So he's like resistant to join the Justice League because he's like, I'll join
I only
it.
care about the land people. What about like the sea and all of that stuff too? That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. That's a good segue into if you think that maybe, we all have like different elemental makeups if we think of our astrological breakdown, right? Because you were saying like you're very Gemini, so it makes sense that like birds and communing with birds and like just getting like the air creatures, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, and no different than I find that people who are like earth signs, like Capricorn, Virgo, Tauruses, do like to have plants around them. There tends to be like a gravitation to like, this is all just like this is high level, like people don't have to resonate with it or not. This is just what I've been seeing in terms of your elemental makeup. Like I don't have a lot of water in my chart, but I found that as a result, it's almost like I seek out water in other ways, right, to make up for the lack of water in my chart. So
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone knows, like, if they gravitate towards, like, I guess a different lens of how you are interacting with the earth, right? Like, are you like more of like a ocean person or like deep forest person or like a desert
Desert.
person
Yeah.
or high in the mountains kind of person?
Yes.
And I
Yeah,
think
yeah, exactly.
for a lot of people, yeah, go on.
There's this character in Young Justice called Geoforce. And he has the ability to like create lava and kind of manipulate like
The
physical earth.
seismic kind of like earth.
Yeah, seismic stuff. Yeah. And like he can like make a rock. And so like, again, he's not like protecting the earth. Like it's not really that, like that's not his personality, but like that is type of the stuff Geoforce can do. Also, this may resonate with some. Marvel's Echo. So Echo, I actually don't know what her abilities are. Like she's very strong, but she has a resonant memory of like all of her mothers and her grandmothers.
Very
So
Bene
she-
Gesserit, that one.
Yeah, she's a little Bene Gesserit that way. So yeah, she's cool too. What are some of your favorite, like, aside from Captain Planet, who Rachel had a crush on, still has a crush on?
It's the mullet. I had a big crush on, like, there was like
Oh
a
my
thing
God.
about like mullets back in the day that I was like, oh, Captain Planet, Slater from like Saved by the Bell. Who else had a mullet? Patrick Swayze had a pretty sweet mullet.
Okay, yeah, Patrick Swayze did have a sweet mullet. Yeah.
Demon Slapbot says Echo was an agent of Shields.
Yeah, she was. Again, I forget. Her power isn't like classically earthy, but it is classically like human stewardship. Right? Like she's I think she's native or some she has native roots. Or at least she does in the show, like in the Disney show.
So ecologically wise, like it's hard for me because, well, actually Fern Gully is one of my favorite movies that have to do with like nature, like and I have a lot of like heart stuff with that because I had a friend of mine who like committed suicide years and years ago who referred to me as like Krista in Fern Gully back in the day. And he referred to himself as like the bat in that movie. And the bat was voiced by Robin Williams. And everyone knows that Robin Williams also committed suicide. So it's one of those things where like there's a tell in a lot of things where like people, you don't know what's going on underneath it, but also as well that you don't know what role you're playing for people in your lives. You know, like you don't know that you're like the fairy, like you're the forest fairy for someone, like you don't really know that well, but like it's just a matter of like we're all in a story. And so if we are like in a time where like the earth is rising to her highest vibration and we're like in this point of like being aware of where we are, that there's heroes out there that we can look up to. So her, who else? There was another one that came to me and then I lost it. Oh my gosh. Who is that
From
chick who
comics?
like wears? No, she's like in the forest and she wears like a leopard print bikini.
Shira?
Shara. It's something like that in Marvel. It sounds like Shira. Oh my gosh, what's her name? She's like,
A leopard print bikini.
yeah, you guys, does anyone know who I'm talking about? Let's see here. Demon
Oh.
Slapbot says Batman 90s, Young Justice, Harley Quinn, DC cartoon. I don't, oh, I think that maybe he's talking about like story-wise how you're getting your comic book information.
Oh yes, yes.
Marvel.
Those are the things I watch.
Leopard bikini.
Leopard bikini, yeah. I mean, I don't think Wonder Woman is exactly like her tribe. Like they're not very like nature. Like I wouldn't call them eco warriors, but they do live in a lot of harmony with their environment on their island, whatever the island is called.
Yes, that's true. But they're not necessarily like I'm trying to think if there's like female warriors that are like all together to like protect the earth besides dragon warriors, but you know.
Besides us.
I am Ozymandias. Ozzy's an intense. Oh, I actually watched on Netflix. They have Watchmen, the animated, but it's like redone to be exactly like the comic book.
Ooh.
And it's actually really good. I just finished it, and it's actually like I recommend it. Watch it because it's kept a lot of the comic book like, and the voice actors are really, really good.
Oh, I love that. Okay, good. Yes. I think I'm out of things to. Oh, I have a lot of seasons of the 60s Batman, but I don't watch it all together. It is very dated, so it's a little hard to pick.
I like old stuff. Yeah, and to Kane Sydney C. Yes, Rorschach sounds awesome. He sounds like Rorschach's a very like voice, like you know what he says in there where like I'm not trapped in here with you. You're all trapped in here with me. Like that kind of, it's just like, oh, I like get chills from my spine when he like says certain things. You are Rorschach. Rorschach's a not compromising, right? Like in the end, when you tell a lie to unite all of humanity against a common enemy, right? What a tell in that comic book, right? Where they plop down this squid because they want to make it seem like it's invasion from another planet.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
Really just
Adrian Veidt. Yeah. Adrian Veidt being Adrian Veidt. Yeah. It's so funny because like, I mean, obviously, I actually really liked the movie. The comic is obviously amazing, but considering it was a much shorter
hot take, I liked like Zack Snyder's movie too.
He did it. It was a decent. I was so cringe when I'm like, oh, they're gonna ruin it, but I was actually happy about it. But yeah, again, like that actor who played Rorschach and the voice, like when they realize it's Adrian Veidt and he's like, I cannot imagine a more dangerous enemy. He's the fastest man, and like. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's funny, like ecological or not, so many heroes take their name from animals, right? The owl, Ant-Man. So there is, I think even like, maybe you don't go and like help ants build their hills or whatever, but like Ant-Man works in collaboration with ants. Like they build all his stuff and they help him, right? Like there is, I mean, maybe he kind of like controls the hive mind and stuff like that. But like I've kind of always found that really interesting. So whatever species or animal, like dolphin, like the Atlanteans, they all like in DC, Atlantis is like very, it's like a peak of civilization, and they have all of this technology with the water, and they communicate and receive information from all the ocean life.
Yeah. No, it's let's see here. Someone had pointed out, I'm not sure, Dorian brought up Venetian, Atlanteans and Amazonians are the best female warriors. But I know who Venetian. Are you familiar, Arya?
No, I don't know what that is.
Dorian, if you can
clarify.
I know what you mean, because I'm all about amazing female warriors for the earth. Who watches The Watchmen? Yes. DC Watchmen movie was a good movie. I agree too. And The Silver Surfer was the most.
Oh my God. I love, you have no idea how much I always thought The Silver Surfer was kind of hot, but I love The Silver Surfer. And when the movie came out, I was like, what is this? Like, it was terrible. It was so bad. But so many DC movies are bad.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Like, I feel like they take the interesting part. It's like, I don't know. You actually have a much better sense on the, the Hollywoodization of stories. I feel like they're like, oh, let's take the most popular thing, make it into an adaptive screenplay. And here in Act 1, 2, and 3, we'll add the emotion and the war and this. And it's very like cookie cutter weird. Like it's actually not interesting. Like, how do you take Batman or Superman and actually go the extra mile to make those movies boring? Like what? Why?
You know what it is though? I think that Hollywood has so let's put it like, if you take everything back, right? Comic books and a lot of like these stories, like comic books are new myth and they're really just storyboards for like Hollywood. So I feel like with DC, like Marvel itself too, you had Stan Lee. It's in working on my own comic book, the way that DC even has all their stories, it's not their multiverses are not the same. Like
right.
I was doing some research into Rachel Summers before my later comic book reading that I'm doing later. And it like kind of blew my mind a little bit because
sorry. Rachel Summers is from Marvel. She is the daughter of Scott Summers, Cyclops, and Jean Grey. And Rachel Summers and Rachel have a lot in common.
Yes, and I only realized that now because I was looking into like the multiverse of Marvel just like for my own research in terms of like traversing multiverses in my own book because I'm not as familiar with are you like the multiverse of Marvel?
A little like from the Watcher's perspective, like the guy who like watches all of the.
Okay, yeah. So like I'm not familiar with like you have Earth 616, like Earth 811, but I'm not quite sure like how those are structured, or like how can you traverse different time streams and whatnot. But
Yeah.
Rachel Summers, essentially, like, she's like from the future and she comes back into the past to teach the ethics of time travel, but she's very much entwined with like the Phoenix Force
Yeah.
and that whole concept of like, creation, destruction. And she is actually really great friends with Franklin Richards.
I don't know who that is. Oh,
That is
Reed
the
Richards?
son of
Reed
Sue
Richards?
Storm and
Yeah.
Reed Richards. And he
Okay.
actually takes the mantle from Galactus to start the new universe.
Oh, interesting. Apathy's Last Dance has a really great comment. DC has moral and ethical dilemmas in the stories, and Marvel is more fantasy and action.
You know
Which
what?
I can totally see.
I can see that too. Like, if there's more of like the villains in DC are like intense.
Yeah,
They're,
yeah,
like,
yeah, for
the
sure.
stuff that Joker does is like
Pretty psychotic.
it's
Yeah.
obscene. Like, I will say though, like if you read Marvel comics,
Yes,
it's
some of them
much
are like,
more
yeah.
dark. Like, especially a lot of the Dark Phoenix Saga stuff. A lot of the stuff that deals with even
A lot
Star
of the
Wars.
skull, like the Red Skull, the Hydra stuff, like it's a lot of psychological warfare. The Age of Ultron, like the actual, not the movie, the comic Age of Ultron is like you see like Captain America broken, shield broken, like like as a man he is broken. This 10-year, like the comic is 10 years of this like android Ultron
Yeah,
taking over the earth. Like the comics are different. Yeah, I totally get that. No, for sure.
Rachel
But
and Franklin Richards were a couple in Days of Future Present. They were a couple. Interesting.
oh my God, I realized something the other day. Rachel Summers' brother is Cable. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
half brother. And
That's
I'm
why I
like,
say
no,
Voice
no.
of One and me are Cable and Rachel Summers.
You guys are Cable and Rachel Summers? That's
Yes, we
okay,
figured
well,
it out. And we're
that's-
like from the future come to the but the
Yeah.
interesting too is that Jean Grey rejects Rachel Summers too. Hey, there's a whole like thing where like it's like it's a very
But like coming back to like earthy
Earth
related,
energies,
Marvel has a group of characters called the Eternals. One of them is Cersei, and Cersei kind of has the powers of Gaia in Captain America, so she can like and like a bit like Poison Ivy, like she can grow things, but she's more that traditional, warm, nurturing, like so she'll like. And she's very kind, and she's more that she's like the opposite of Poison Ivy. Like they sort of have similar powers, but Cersei doesn't deal in like toxins and poisons. It's more like, oh, this tree is growing in this direction, and like even like how her power manifests is a lot of like this. So each of the Eternals have an elemental structure or something that they work with. Hers happens to be Earth, but again, like she's not like. Other characters are maybe cool. Someone has super speed, someone has strength, someone is like irony. And hers is like, and so, like if someone's attacking her, she'll like grow a tree around them very fast.
I kind of like that.
Which is interesting.
Groot is kind of a ecological hero.
He is.
I am
Groot
Groot.
is. Oh my God. That scene where he like makes them into, so the scenes in Guardians of the Galaxy where they're free falling, and he creates this vine and then he has little firefly. I sobbed my eyes out. Like I cried, and then he dies. And I was like, oh my God. Like I literally did not care if the other characters died, because to me, the movie ended there.
The tree falling. Oh my gosh, Voice of One.
Like, no, I was ugly crying in theaters.
Oh, I ugly cry. Like it's I feel like you and I probably have a very low threshold for the cry point. But the tree thing as well, like a sentient tree as a figure is also like I love that as well. Like the idea of like Grandmother Willow in like Pocahontas or in Lord of the Rings, where they're trying to get the trees to come like help them in the fight. And my hubby always like quotes the trees in this when we talk about like people fighting about stupid shit. He's always like, like side, no one's on my side.
Yes.
So like, why am I gonna pick a side? So like the trees, like it this whole concept of like we're all kind of in this together, really, and the trees do provide oxygen to us. There's just a beautiful like synergy between us and all of it. And I think, like Heroes like kind of like, oh, the tree's an actual sentient talking thing. I love you. See here. The Eternals help humans by accelerating existing technology.
They do that, which is why like Cersei's power is interesting.
Oh, yes. And the Great Deku Tree and Deku Tree in Zelda. I forget how you say that. But yes, I forgot about that. Yeah. I cried watching Knight Rider. No, you didn't, Voice of One. Or was it because of the Hoff's acting? But you know what? Knight Rider is actually good. And the 90s Excalibur is a great comic. Yes, I am getting some of those comics. Excalibur, Rachel Summers founded Excalibur. Her and Psylocke are actually lovers in some regards. Like Psylocke and Rachel. Yeah, they're multidimensional lovers or something. Because Psylocke is actually she's Captain Britain. She's actually a white woman in like this like Asian body.
Right.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on there. Let's see here. Any other? Okay, yeah, that was. You have comments?
Yeah, I think I'm. Those were all of my comments too.
Oh, so good. Did you see
Shall we wrap up, Princess Mononoke?
Yes. I think what I'll do in the follow up of this is maybe if. Do you have any scenes from Poison Ivy that you like the most that you want to share in like the replay or like?
Or do we want to go creepy? Like one of the scenes of like the creepy babies being born from her Venus flytrap?
Let's go favorite scenes. Let's maybe not ones that are like, questionable.
Questionable, yeah. Yeah, I can try and find a couple that I can send you for sure. And all of this, this whole talk of ours today, this whole episode was very much inspired by our relationship with the wild feminine. And if you missed the beginning, again, like this is that, aspect of each and every one of us that is the potential to birth something, enjoy it, and then death it to transform it again. It's the wisdom of cycles. And we a lot of times like in spiritual communities, it's like, oh, the feminine is rising. To me, that's true. The feminine is rising for all beings, for all people. This is like earth wisdom rising. So I don't see it as like, oh, yay for me because I'm a woman. Like, sure. And for everyone else, because like we all need trees to breathe. We all need plants for the medicine that they provide and the food that they provide. And we need animals for our entire reciprocity cycle to be integrated. So like, to me, that is the feminine rising. And like the aspect of the wild feminine is the one who recognizes all of that and like flows in rhythm with it. And so that is why I really appreciate that these two characters, Princess Mononoke and Poison Ivy, are like, kind of like
they would get along. I feel like, and like so. if those two characters were to meet, they would actually. I think they would get along. But the thing is, too, like it could actually end up being probably chaotic. It could be chaotic if you didn't have like another energy there that was like.
I think they need to have someone to fight against. Like if they're fighting against Irontown or Gotham or like whoever's making the next factory or building, like then they can be like, well, I like poison, blah blah blah. And then a wolf can come and eat them. Like, it'll be like, I'd imagine it's that type of vibe.
Yes.
Like,
Demon Slap Out, you want to share a Poison Ivy scene? Please do in the chat if you would like. And then I think this is a good segue into our next show. So we have our schedule is going to be twice a month.
Yes. So we're basically skipping a week.
Yes.
Because it takes time to produce this.
And then that way too, we can also give you guys some leeway time to know when we're actually going to be live, so that you know like when to catch us and schedule it into your calendars, as well as next. So the next time we're going to be going live will be on
December 20th.
Yes. So for solstice season, and that's kind of exciting for us because we first started this show with summer solstice, and I think we had this chat about how everyone's saying, oh, in the Eastern world, everything is so much more lunar and, our calendar is solar, but it actually isn't a solar calendar either because we don't really follow the solstice. So what we're actually going to do, I think, topic-wise, we're going to talk about time, I think, and also
our relationship to time and like our relationship to seasons and cycles, like some of these aspects of I think you did it in your own way that was slightly different, but I was sick some years ago, and one of the ways I started to get better was to repattern myself to the lunar cycle,
Yeah.
which meant I had a lunar calendar and a lunar journal, and I would like write about it, and I got into a very like a way of syncing with these like lost aspects of myself that got and while I was doing that, I learned to commune with like plants and crystals and things like that. So that and this stuff doesn't have to be of interest to you, but our relationship with like time, seasons, cycles, beginnings, endings from the perspective of this winter solstice is part of what we're discussing. And Rachel comes with like a wealth. Like I think you've actually like had problems with it and researched the hell out of where our calendars and time structures have come from.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the dissonance in how we live and where it serves us and where it doesn't. So
No, it's true because like if you think about even how you do things, right? Anything you're doing, like I worked 9 to 5, right? Even just like that structure, like working 9 to 5, daylight savings time, or like the fact that October is not the eighth month, or like why do we have 30 days some months and 31 days others? And there's no real like in our culture or society when
in modern culture, because like ancient cultures had like very equitable, like the Mayan months or the Vedic months were like equal in number and there were no leap years. So like, but
and
right?
it's
Like
funny too because Superman is supposed to be born on like a leap day, right?
right.
That's the whole lore of it, and the reason for that was because like, oh, it's because he doesn't age, and so he's only. I'm like, that doesn't. But at
That
the
doesn't make sense
time,
at all.
that was what the theory
He
was.
generates under a yellow sun, people. Come now.
But like the whole concept of like we have to like do these little tricks to like make it work when really the whole idea of being in in synergy, in like just being in the moment, in flow, like it's like no different than when you learn a dance and then you know the dance so well that when the song plays, you're not thinking about the moves, you're just doing them, and you're not being told when to do it. You just know that like that's that's the beat when I do this, and then everyone else is doing it too, and then you're in sync and it's fun. So.
Yeah, and that's going to be a juicy episode because we'll also look at why we're not in sync, because having a lot of people in their connective power and flow makes it very hard to control the masses, which is why I think some of these decisions were made like back in the whatever times, whoever made the decision to have this bizarre, like
or even just daylight savings in the first place. Like why do we keep
why do we keep having it? Yeah, like it made sense at one point. And again, it's this thing, right? Like we follow so many like time traditions that made sense 80 years ago or like 200 years ago. And now it's like really? Like we're just going to keep doing it. Like
And also just like perception of time and stuff, right? Like I have a very good friend of mine, and I'm actually going back to Winnipeg this Christmas. So maybe we'll do some shows from there as well. And I had a friend of mine. I'm reconnecting with a lot of my friends that I've like had since I was 5, and she's Jamaican, and she was always literally like 45 minutes late to everything.
Island time.
And like honestly, like you just have to.
Yeah.
It's one of those things with each of us, right? Like, okay, it's important for us all to be there, right? It's like I'm more of like that person where like just let me know where you are in time, like so I know like something's not wrong and like you're actually showing up. But like for everything to be so precise, like be there right at like 10 p.m. or like 10, and you need to be like the stress that causes to try to be somewhere at exactly a right time.
Yeah.
There's too much of that. Because like, what does that even mean? Like if we're all 5 minutes late and we all arrive at the same time, isn't that then now the real new on time?
Yes. Yeah. And it's all these little experiences that we have, right? Like a lot of us experience liminal space and time. And there's like a level of sacredness to that because it is the opposite of mundane time. And right, like, so we have all these little like portals through our day. So that is all happening 2 weeks from now on the winter solstice on Friday, December 20th, probably around this time, 7:30-ish. We're going to go live ish. 7:30-ish.
Really emphasis on the ish.
Yes.
I blame the fact that we have less daylight, and like it feels like I do, like even when we try and do like the Princess Mononoke makeup, I'm like, okay, the triangles need to be perfect. That is so opposite wild feminine energy.
Yeah, it is.
It is, right? Because it's like, oh, like
she's not looking in a mirror when she's doing
no. Well, maybe the water, like, oh, like my red blood and whatever. But like it's like I'm like that's not it. But like at the same time, like you still need the structure and boundary. Like you need the stage to put on a show, right? And you need to have like you need to be up on the stage at the right time and your call times and there's timing and there's time.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna dive into all of that and more on a couple Fridays from now. So we will post the live and we will post the videos and do the reminders. So hopefully you can celebrate solstice energy and the reclamation of our space-time coordinate for you and I and like our personal space-time coordinate and like discuss that and like tease that out so it's juicy for the end of this year. And if you wanted to email us, our email is todaysharmonics with an S at gmail.com. And thank you so much for the confetti. Thank you, Apathy's Last Dance. Thank you guys. Thanks, Voice of One.
Yay. I just put the email in the chat.
Amazing. Yes. So email us. We often take requests, and otherwise, thank you for joining us. Thank you for exploring the wild feminine with us, and we will see you next time.
Yes. I'll talk to you later, my friend, Poison Ivy. Until next time, everybody. Bye.